Well, hello. I have just gotten the official text that we're allowed to start. So I just wanted to say, I'm so glad you're all here today. Thank you so much for coming out to our UFI Connects creativity session. I've been irritating everybody all day long, telling them how excited I am for the session. So honestly, I'm thrilled to finally start. Today, we're really going to try to get our creative fires burning, as it was, in time for the plans for Global Exhibitions Day, which is coming up on the 3rd of June. So creativity, I find that it's one of the worst things you can do to a person is to turn to them in a room and say, well, you're creative. What do you think we should do? Because then I've never had any thought in my head ever. Everything goes right out. Nothing says creativity to me like a moment filled with pressure and expectations. So it's that if you have ever felt that staring at a blank screen, kind of waiting for the words to come, trying to think up a new slogan or a new concept, it's really hard to get started with an idea. So that I hope today you'll find this session will be useful and inspiring. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. All the panelists and I want you to express yourselves, ask any questions, share ideas, go absolutely nuts in the chat, whatever. Just be loose today and let's let the creativity flow. So, to get things started, I'd like to do a poll if we can, please. So the poll says, do you think you're a creative person? Yes, no, or this question's already putting too much pressure on me. All right, I think you can see the results now. I can see the results. 65% of you said yes, 28 no, and 7% this question's putting too much pressure on me. Personally, I guess I think of myself as creative. I probably would have answered the poll with a no, but I love saying, you know, I've got an idea about that. So I guess that's the same thing, maybe not, maybe it's something we can talk about today. But one thing that is for certain for me personally is that I find I have very little control over my creativity. So for example, the other day, I was trying to think up a theme for a webinar. I was playing around with the idea around building, you know, we keep saying rebuilding and building, maybe constructing the future, I don't know, something like that. But nothing was sticking and nothing really felt new or fresh to me. So I put on my sneakers and I went out for a run. And halfway through, I had this great idea. I'd order all kinds of decorations, flowers, cake. I'd have everything sent to my brother's house. And then I'd have him break into my parents' house overnight and set everything up, which was really great for Mother's Day because it let us do something to honor my mom with social distancing still going on, but it did nothing to help with the webinar idea, and I still don't know what I'm gonna do about that. So we don't have any predictability around it for me, but I'm hoping that our panelists today will have more insight for you than I do. I'm really thrilled to be joined today by folks who produce some really, really creative things. Whether they think of themselves as creative or not, we'll have to see what they say, what they responded to the poll. And we're going to talk about things like what is creativity, how do they get inspired, what are their goals with any sort of creative piece, and any other questions we have for them. So go ahead and put what you like in the chat. We will do questions probably towards the end. After everybody kind of introduced themselves and gives you a bit more about their pieces they're going to show. And hopefully we will all come out of this with some really good ideas for celebrating Global Exhibitions Day this year. So one more poll before I introduce our first speaker. Is creativity required in your job? Yes, no, or I'd say it's more like creativity than creativity. Really excited. What a great group. You guys think of yourselves as creative people. Creativity is required in your job. This session is going to be a breeze. It's going to be really fun. So 77% of you said yes, creativity is required in my job. 3% said no. And 19%, I'd say it's more like creativity than actually creativity. So on that note, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Natasha Lyle. She is the managing partner of Expocast. She created several funny videos I hope you've seen during the quarantine. And I'm going to start by playing a quick clip for you, and then we will have Natasha speak. And now you're going to see whether or not I can share my screen successfully. So let's give this a try. Yeah, good everybody?
Oh, you do events, right?
Yeah, I do. I work in the events industry.
Like party planning? Oh, no, not parties. What, like weddings? Because I've always thought that would be a really nice job to do. No, not weddings either. What, like festivals and stuff? Oh, can you get me some free tickets? Well, probably not the kind of festivals you're referring to. All right, I'm not into anything weird. Oh, no, I didn't mean anything like that. I mean, yes, we've supported experiential type events, but mainly our festivals are very kind of B2B led. Oh, the BBC? You on telly? No, not BBC. B2B in business to business, or B2C, business to consumer. Or sometimes they can be both. You're actually really confusing me now. Okay, so the events I'm referring to are exhibitions, conferences, you know, the mice events. I see. No, I wouldn't go to those because, ooh, I don't like mice. Just the thought of their little feet running around and their little pink tails, ooh, grosses me out. What?
All right, if you want to see the rest of it, you'll have to check out the video. We'll put the link in the chat if nobody has already. Natasha, you want to talk to us, please, about that and about whether you consider your job a creative job. Certainly these videos are wonderfully creative. Tell us why you started doing them and your goals.
Sure. It's always really difficult watching your own videos back. It never gets easier. Well, thanks for having me on today, first of all. It's a real honour and actually super cool for me to be sharing my ideas around video with you, especially as I actually had no idea how well my videos would be received, which touches on what you said earlier. I guess if I start with why I started creating video content. So 2 months ago, just as lockdown was coming into place, we launched our brand new business, Expocast. So the timing was impeccable and we couldn't believe our luck or lack of it. And to begin with, I was just convinced that we had started what we had hoped to be something really special at the worst possible time ever. But it really forced us to reevaluate our strategy and how we connected with our clients and candidates, and to sell in a time of a pandemic just felt really, really wrong. So we decided the best thing for us to do right now was just to listen, understand what everyone was going through and help where we could, obviously, but just to really stay engaged and present so that when the time is right, you know, hopefully we'll be at the forefront of everyone's minds. So the challenge for us was, how do we build brand awareness without having a marketing department and with a brand that had only just been born? And this is where the video content comes in for us. It's a brilliant tool for us to act upon all those things I've just mentioned. And by listening to our industry peers, attending industry webinars and other online events, that's really inspired most of our content for our videos, and it's ensured that it's kept relevant, it's informative, and it's certainly, you know, building that brand awareness without you know, selling a thing, and in a really sensitive way. So in fact, the video that you just saw was inspired from all of the industry discussions we were having around, you know, how we needed to build awareness of the industry, because so many people just didn't get what we do, and that included the government for one. So I guess for me, I've been really fortunate to be using video to advertise my vacancies for some years now. And actually, when I watch my first ever video back, it's so cringeworthy and I look so wooden and stiff and quite frankly petrified. It's awful. But with time, it does get better. And like everything, practice makes perfect. And what I've learned is that the more I relax, the more I show the real me, the more risks I take, the better received my videos are. And because just like everything this industry stands for, there is nothing like seeing someone's face, getting to know the real them, which ultimately your audience can connect with. They begin to trust you, and without directly selling them a thing, you have formed some amazing relationships, which is key for any business, especially a new one like ours. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding, but I already feel far more connected with our industry than I've ever been, and yet I haven't met one person face to face in 2 months now. So it's really, really working well for us. So if I had to share any sort of, key creative tips, I'm no expert, but this is what's worked for us. So when you get an idea, just trial it out, no matter how silly it sounds, because as you progress, your idea will evolve and you'll probably end up with something completely different, but it will be awesome. So just go with it, just persevere. Always aim to get an emotional response from your audience. So I try and do this with humor. It doesn't always work, but the idea is to add a bit of humor in there and make the content more memorable, which kind of nicely links me on to my next few points. For me, I draw on personal experiences. It makes it more real. It is a bit risky because I guess it can make you feel a bit vulnerable, but it definitely lets the audience connect with you more. Be relatable. Think about your audience. How can you spark a connection with them? What do you have in common? And I think the reason why my video was so successful is that everyone in the events industry, no matter what area, could connect with that. They could relate with it. So there's that. I think don't try and be too fancy with your content. Sometimes too many bells, too many whistles can definitely overpower the main message. Having said that, I definitely fall victim of this. But there are some brilliant apps and software that you can use for free. And in fact, the app I used for that video is called InShot, and it's just a free app that I used on my phone. So, and it worked really well. You might laugh at this next point. Keep it short and sweet, which I struggle with because I love to talk. But from experience, the shorter my videos have been, the more successful they've been. And which encourages me now to wrap things up and but just be consistent with your content. If your content disappears, so will your audience. And I guess for me, what have I got out of this experience? So that video by itself reached over 65,000 views on LinkedIn. It's crazy. 140 reshares. So it's opened up my network tremendously. I've had 1,000 new relevant connections on LinkedIn that have connected with me. Hundreds of direct messages from potential candidates, clients, which is helping me build a fantastic pipeline, and obviously exposure to events like these, which is fantastic. It's also sparked up some new ideas and some fresh content, and actually even some events. And I have checked that I'm allowed to mention this today, but we're really excited to share the launch of Eventprof's Got Talent, which is a joint venture between Expocast and Mash Media, and that is giving you all an opportunity to really show off your creativity, and it's going to be very funny and very exciting. So I'm expecting big things now that you all know about it. And I guess the brand awareness thing's working really well for us with our video, with our content, and our perspective has changed from a glass half empty to a glass very much half full. And we're really thankful to have been forced to think outside the box and become more creative than we ever thought we could be. So that's my journey, and that's, you know, how we've achieved it, and hopefully some of that will help.
Thank you so much, Natasha. I think one of the things, you gave a lot of really good tips there. I love trial it out, because I know personally, I love to think, oh, that'd be funny, and then, you know, talk myself out of it. And I loved how you shared with us, you know, how it's really been helpful for your business as well. It's not just creativity is fun, which again, I personally can follow. I can fall foul of that and just being like, ooh, what fun thing could we do? But that's really been helpful for you in your business. And everybody do watch out for Event Prof's Got Talent as that develops and more comes out on that. So the next thing I would like to do is another poll, because I love them. So if we could please, can creativity be taught? Yes, no, or shrug? This one is a lot more split than the other ones we've had so far. Yes, almost 50%. No, 26%, 25%. You're not willing to commit, which fair enough. But our next speaker, Ben Veechai, is the Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications in Asia for Informa Markets. And he's going to discuss with us a bit more about the importance of sharing ideas and best practices when it comes to creativity and inspiration. So Ben, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Caitlin. Really funny video, Natasha. I'm trying to take all those notes now, be relatable and funny and relaxed to the audience. And hi, all of you out there. I hope you're all staying safe. Maybe give a little bit of a background before I show you the slide. Is at Informa Markets in Asia, where we are the largest trade exhibition organizer in Asia. So we have something like 200 shows we produce a year, some of the biggest shows in jewelry, cosmetic, and I say all those things because I feel so lucky for about 8 years now, working in Asia. I'm here in Hong Kong, where I get to work with about 400 marketers, getting them to be, producing the best types of shows that we can. So my story goes, I basically spend, pre-COVID, traveling around to all of our various offices. I travel probably 60% of each month with my team. On the marketing side, we train people on different things like email marketing, how to do customer insights, how to do all kinds of things to get more visitors, quality visitors to our show. Now, with COVID, that put the kibosh on traveling, period. Still, we have to continue helping our folks and getting people to engage. Now, here in Asia, it's a little bit different. I think you guys, we're sort of like, we sort of started out here. So we had the lockdowns earlier. Now we're dealing with when our shows do open again, what's strategy gonna be? So we went through a lot of those steps. So how are we supposed to reach people if we can't travel? Well, we have to go digital. So I sort of married this idea I always wanted to do. I'm an avid fan of podcasts and webcasts. And I thought, I marched into the room one day with my team and I said, hey guys, let's start a webcast. Let's start Asia Marketing TV. We're gonna do it talk show style. We're gonna basically procure, we can show the slide, Caitlin? And so basically what we did was, I followed all the rules of podcasting. It was new for me. It's got to treat it like a newsroom. We had to procure content, get speakers, communicate it out there to all our folks. So every week, basically, we brought people together from different parts of the business who had different experiences in marketing or challenges with COVID-19. So in the early stages back in February, we're talking about how do you communicate with your exhibitors, what types of content are you putting out there, down to when people are locked down, what should we be doing when we have to postpone an event? What's sensitive? What's good marketing? So what's really fun about this was it's completely internal, but on average, we get anywhere from 50 to 200 plus employees who log in. And it's live. So we treat it like a news show, people like this, asking questions. And I'd like to think, we've done about 10 episodes now, and I'd like to think that the staff feel as excited about it as I do. It's creative, it's been creative. The whole experience has been creative in the sense that we've had to go out of our own comfort zone in terms of reaching out and helping people. And the double creative part is I then get to take a look at what are the creative things people are doing out there in China, in Malaysia, in Singapore. And I think it's been sort of my takeaway from this is that when you're in a bad situation like COVID-19, you can choose to see your job, your work as one way. You can choose to see yourself as a victim, or you can choose to see yourself as a participant. Yeah? So it really is true. Necessity will make you more creative if you're willing to adapt. I would say in terms of my tips for being creative, this is one that's quite, I definitely agree with everything Natasha said, but I have one very specific tip for all of you out there. And creativity is not just about doing designs and doing creative work. For those of you who may not have a marketing function, you still have to be creative every day in your job. You have to be creative and problem solving, right? So I get my most creative ideas when I think about 4 or 5 problems on my desk. And how can I just combine them together? Yeah? Let's see, problem number 1, we can't travel. Problem number 2, I'm getting 1,000 questions today about marketing. Problem number 3, we still need to be like reaching out to people, make them connected. Problem number 4, more like a good thing. I always want to do a podcast. Problem number 5, the team needs to learn new skills. So let's do this Asia marketing TV. So creative things can happen out of necessity that you just want to solve a problem. So rather than just trying to solve one by one, think of one really smart thing you can do, and it's going to make you feel like really, really accomplished too. So that's my share.
Oh my God, I loved that. I loved see what you can just combine that's on your desk. I am absolutely going to do that after we get off the call. I'm going to be like, how can I make this one problem? That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Ben. And I also loved you talking about how necessity can make you more creative, and certainly gives you a lot more leeway, I think, as well, to try out new things that you might not have before. I certainly think within this industry, we can all fall a bit in the habit of it worked that way before, or we did it like that and everybody loved it, and maybe not innovate and be creative as much as we should be or could be or should push to. So thank you very much. As you can all now expect, it's once again my favorite poll time. If we can please. Who is responsible for being creative in your organization? Everyone, a specific in-house department. We outsource most of our creative projects, some combination of the above, or no one is creative here. Thank you so much. So really, you guys are such a positive audience. You're creative, everybody's contributing, you feel like you've got creativity in your jobs. 47%, everybody's responsible for being creative. 9%, there's a specific in-house department. 2%, we outsource. 40%, some combination. And for the 2 people who feel like no one is creative, I'm so glad that you're on this webinar, and I hope that it helps a bit for you to feel like maybe you can be that creative person. So thank you very much for that. And now we are going to, well, I am going to introduce our next speaker. Dan Dilorenzo is the Director of Digital Marketing at Diversified Communications. We are going to show again a quick clip of a video that's been produced, if we want to do that.
Yep, I'll go ahead and share that right now. One moment.
much, Dan.
No problem.
Doing videos like this isn't something you normally do, right?
No, actually, my team is diversified. We're centralized. So similar to a question that was just asked in the poll, who's responsible for creative? There's a lot of people who are essentially responsible for being creative within our company, but my team sort of focuses like a little mini in-house agency at Diversified. So we very often have limited resources to the video production that we have. But we try to take a combination of, you know, the footage that's taken at events as well as stock footage, and often put together videos that are mostly focused on creating leads and really helping conversions. So I would say, you know, a lot of the videos that we put together have a call to action at the end that says, and register today. I think we're all very familiar with that call to action. But then in March, we started meeting with all the different marketers from the actual event teams, and we were hearing the same thing over and over, which was really, we need to change our message. We want to be sensitive. We don't want to be overly promotional. I think Natasha touched on that as well too as a concern. We just really want to let our customers know that we'll be there. So we kept on hearing this repeatedly and repeatedly, and I thought, could it be powerful to pull something together from more of like the corporate side of Diversified that really showed all the similar challenges from our events and what they're experiencing. But I also wanted to have a message that had some hope and optimism. So really the way that this video came about was one night I was sitting at in my new office, my kitchen table, having a cocktail, and I all of a sudden just kind of started scripting out this message for this video idea. And really I woke up the next day and I was really feeling inspired to start putting things together. So I started looking through still photos and B-roll footage from all of our events. And, you know, I feel really lucky. My team, since we are centralized, we work with all the different teams. So I have a hand in really understanding what creative is out there for all of our events. So I went into this app that we use called Wave Video. It's, you know, again, it's pretty cost effective. It has access to a lot of different stock content. And just started putting the video together. And I think really what it inspired me was looking at all of these big brand commercials. In the US, we're seeing videos pretty similar to that, that are very often user-generated content, but have sort of a same sentiment. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I wanted it to encompass really all the events that Diversified organizes. And I think I probably spent about 4 to 5 hours putting together that video. And really what I wanted to do was start to first share that out with our organization. So I shared it with a couple people and got sort of a sense of some colleagues to see how they initially responded to it and got their feedback, and then sort of moved on and shared it with the leadership team, and they said, this is great. So really my first audience was the organization itself. So we have these weekly town meetings that we've had since the beginning of March. And we're getting regular updates on what's going on in the industry, what's going on with our events. And realistically, sometimes it's not always the most positive message. Sometimes it's challenging. There's things that we're all experiencing right now. But the initial reaction from the organization was very positive. I started getting emails and getting messages immediately that, you know, this was something that I needed right now, after having, you know, received some of the hard news over the past previous weeks. So I think in achieving sort of that inspiration, hopefully it started with the Diversified staff. And then I really decided just to figure out how can I pull this together as a campaign. So, you know, keeping those things in mind, I didn't want to be promotional. I actually didn't want to put any budget towards this. I just wanted to put it out there organically. So I put together a campaign through LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, shared it out on all of our social channels with the message of we'll be there. And really, I think since then, some momentum has picked up within the company, which was, you know, we have a lot of creative people within the organization. They started putting together their own versions of this video that's very customized for their audience. I would say we have an office that's in Australia, and they had reached out to me and wanted to put together something with Australian flavor. I really wasn't sure what that meant. So they went off and created their own video. And I think it's going to be similar to our video, which is totally cool. And so obviously this is just one piece of content right now. I think that when I think about the biggest takeaway from this experience, it's really, I think that B2B can have heart. And I think you saw that in Natasha's videos and in Ben's examples. We often, get creative in how we mix up our messaging and get people to take action. But I think that, not everything has to be a dramatic video, nor does it need to be a PDF about the ROI on your event. You can really create sort of a hybrid of things that are, have some personal sentiment and also tapping into the human side and also sort of the business side of things. So, I think as my team moves forward, this has been sort of a really, I think, good opportunity for us to be more conscious about it and really think about how do we want to communicate with our audience. And, I was really happy today to talk about this. But the experience in itself, I think, was really helpful to get me and I think a lot of people within our company to sort of rethink about how we want to message our audience.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dan. And I mean, everybody's certainly touched upon it, is around that emotional piece and the heart and the personality. And I think a lot of times when we see things, like you're saying, that are positive internally, they become the things that are really positive externally too, because
Right.
they are a little bit silly. They do show off our human side. They do say, we're not just faceless companies and things like that, but we really are, we're people. But even more so than that, in the business that we do, we're creating connections. So it is so much that relationship thing and showing off.
Great.
And I loved that you see people adapting the video, because I think that's one of the other big things that you see so often is like, hey, that was great, let's do it again. And you're like, okay, but if we do it again, is it gonna have the same reaction? Or it's gotta have some other twist, or we personally get bored with it, right? As a creative person, you're like, I don't wanna do the same thing again, I wanna do something new. So I love the idea that they are now taking it and kind of adapting it, because it's a little bit of pressure off you, but really gets to use that same fantastic idea again and again. So we have some questions coming in the chat, and we've got some time for questions. So Lisa, I think this is how this works. I might not be right. I might be supposed to read it, but I think, Lisa, I'm supposed to ask you if you would like to read your question. And if I'm wrong, somebody tell me. Well, I'm getting a text, which I assume means, oh no, Lisa, yeah? Okay, I will read the question. Lisa has asked, is success possible without creativity? What do you think? Dan, since this came in while you were still talking, do you want to go ahead and take a first stab at it? And then if anybody else wants to chime in, you're more than welcome.
Can success, sorry, read the question one more time, Caitlin, please.
I would be delighted. Thank you for asking. Is success possible without creativity? What do you think?
I'm going to take a very marketer approach to this answer and say no. I'm sure that in other roles there might be, execution is, probably extremely important. But I think in terms of from the marketing side of things, I think you need to be creative and create things that are going to connect with people. Not everything, there's creative and you can come up with ideas. And I think that there's, Ben mentioned this as well too. There's also sort of a combination of strategy. What's the long-term piece? If you're creating something and you're putting it out there in the world and it sort of lives and then dies and then you move on, what's the long-term impact of it? I think that you need to think strategically. So as a combination of strategy and creativity is probably the best recipe for success. But I do think from being creative from an operational standpoint to my background is actually in customer service. I think my initial, I think where I got into marketing was I really enjoyed being on the phone, connecting with people and figuring out how to convince somebody to buy something or talking someone off a ledge or whatever it might be. That sort of personalized thing led me to marketing. And I think I try to keep that in mind when I'm being creative and when I'm trying to figure out messaging and from a marketing standpoint. I don't know what the other panelists would say.
You guys want to chime in?
When I read that question, it was, I don't know, maybe I saw it as somebody who perhaps might be concerned that they don't have the creativity, and is that going to hold them back from being successful? Whereas I think a lot of us worry about that. When you mentioned earlier, Caitlin, someone says, well, you're creative, what ideas have you got? And you're like, you're just stuck. But I think people can be creative without them realizing that they're being creative, and sometimes the worry about not being creative can, you know, you start procrastinating and not actually doing anything. But I think just kind of throw yourself into it and just brainstorm, and without realizing, I think you become creative, and so success is possible. I've answered that in a very strange way, but that's kind of what I got from that question.
Do you need to be creative to be successful? Well, Lisa, I have a question for you. Are all successful people creative? No, probably not. Probably not. I think probably being creative helps to be successful, because you can think of new ideas to reach a goal. But I totally agree with my colleagues have said too. You know, this idea of like, you gotta just, ideas are one thing, but ideas into action. And then that's why many of you out there are marketers too, because you can't just have an idea and you think it's wonderful. You have to have a goal. Like, why do I put this video out there? And maybe sometimes they happen really serendipitously. Like Natasha, who had all these, who's just trying to, and she had a goal actually. When you made those videos, you had a purpose. And as a byproduct, you have all these additional wonderful things that came out. So I think it helps. But you know, some people are successful, depending on how you define success, with just dumb luck, right? But it surely helps.
That's great. Thank you, guys. We have some questions coming in about Global Exhibitions Day. So I was going to wait to the end because I wanted to, but I'm not going to wait to the end. I'm going to show you a couple of GED related things, and then we will come back to some of the questions coming in here, like the one that just came in about how to select a creative person and things like that. So we will come back to it, I promise. But first, my GED commercial. Pascal, may I please have the slides? Thank you so very much. So we titled this session Creativity in Time for Global Exhibitions Day because it's coming up in just 2 weeks. And obviously it's something that we celebrate each year. It's always on the first Wednesday of June. And we're trying to recognize and celebrate and bring awareness to the contributions and the people of our industry. But clearly this year more than ever, we need to come together as an industry, and we need to celebrate the amazing things that we do. As Dan used the same phrase, and I keep using it as well, I keep calling this the Hope and Optimism campaign for our industry, because we do so much. The organizers, the venues, the service providers, the associations, the consultants, the students, everybody that's kind of involved in our world, you really help to create these amazing places where these industries come together to meet. You know, plus the things of our shows contributing to the local economies, all the business that's conducted at our events. It stimulates all this building throughout the world. So our theme for GED this year is exhibitions are key to rebuilding economies. And you'll see on this slide some of the different things, different ways you can get involved. Small things, share photos of you and your colleagues with the GED logo. You can support lots of lobbying efforts, lots and lots of being done on that side. I hope you're all keeping aware of it because it's great for our industry. We've got templates to do your own Voices of the Exhibition Industry card, where you could tell us, what do you think the future of events looks like? Or what is it that you love about events? Or how do your events help to rebuild economies? Or anything you want to say. We were trying to do some follow-along videos. If you want to show us a little bit of behind-the-scenes life, even behind the scenes in quarantine would be great too. Organize or attend a GED-related activity. You all get a big plus for that. You've done it already, but there's plenty more. Or celebrate it in your own way. You can go crazy, go nuts. come up with your own campaigns. It's your holiday, do it as you like. But the thing that I'm really excited, and honestly, it only happened about an hour before the webinar started today, is we have this new map. So if I can please have the next slide. So I can't tell you how excited I am about this. This is that emotional piece we keep talking about. What we're doing is we're asking people to share moments that have happened at your events. It could be this year, it could be 10 years ago, it could be 100 years ago. We want to collect all these stories behind the exhibition. So we talk about the big numbers a lot, and that's wonderful. But where's that emotional connection piece that shows off these cool things happening at our events throughout the world? This is hopefully to kind of capture, and this is the form, and then there'll be this big interactive map that will showcase all these amazing moments. So what I'm asking for everybody to do, and some of you have already started doing it, so great, send us photos or videos, show us presidents opening your shows, show us kings and queens visiting, big products being launched, cool CSR activities. Maybe there's been an industry changing keynote that happened at your event, a really great exhibitor story about how they connected and their business bloomed. Whatever it is, it's a moment, it's a story that shows how exhibitions connect people, and that those connections build our global business. So I just wanted to show that off. Those are my kind of GED takeaways. If you want to put more questions in the chat about that, we can come back to that. But I would like to switch now and answer the question around how to select a creative person for a job interview. Natasha, I think you're probably the most natural for that. But then Ben, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. And while they answer that, if somebody wants to ask GED related questions in the chat, go ahead.
Yeah, very happy to answer that. I think for us, when we're interviewing candidates for creative roles, obviously that being very much around marketing, we always suggest that you get yourself a really good portfolio together of all the events that you've been working on, and you can showcase some of your really creative campaigns that you've been part of. So I think when you're interviewing somebody, you know, get them prepared to come to the interview with some examples of their work, what they've done, the successes that they've had. You could also give them a task to complete, you know, get them to do a presentation. Normally that you would normally ask for a presentation probably on the second stage or third stage interview, but you can give them, you know, a task that maybe you've got or an event that you're holding. How would they market this event? What have they done in the past that's worked, and how could, you know, what could they bring that's new and fresh? I certainly think there's going to be, the interviews are going to change very much so after the pandemic around people's digital experiences and what success they've had around that. But so in short, the answer to that question is get examples, get a really good portfolio of events and successes that they've had, and definitely ask them to do a presentation, something fresh, something new, which they can demonstrate in an interview. Does that help?
That's great, that's great. Ben, do you want to give a bit of your perspective on that too?
Sure. I absolutely agree with all the things that Natasha said. Now, I personally am a brutal interviewer, and I love interviewing few candidates. So I'll give you guys a couple more tips. This is my experience in interviewing candidates, marketing, design across Asia. Yes, people will come in with a portfolio, but it's the key questions that you ask them about that. So you got to be really clear. For example, a marketer or someone will come and say, I did all these fantastic campaigns. I did this, I had a portfolio from Gucci, they're working at Gucci. And the question you got to ask are, number one, you know, what part did you have to play in this? Did you create it? Did you just follow? Did you use an agency? That's why I'd stop listening right there. If they come up with a creative, that's where you also have to know some creative skills, saying, well, did you actually lay this out yourself? Did you use InDesign? How did you come up with the idea? So you can probe these people more. And I absolutely love giving people, and now you're thinking about creative in terms of problem solving and marketing, I love giving people scenario questions, you know, and seeing how they think, you know, or even tests. I give people tests on rewriting things and having a problem and how would you solve it. So those are my sort of extra tips.
And did you
I
want
hope
to
you never
comment on
have to. I hope you never have to interview me, Ben.
I know, same. I think Caitlin, another thing too is just, especially if you're not in a marketing role, I usually like to ask a question about, give me an example of a time they had to overcome an obstacle and how did they go about doing it. I think just seeing how people use their resources and how they came out on top of that situation is always really interesting. You know, how resilient were they? I mean, you can get a response that ranges from, and it didn't work out, and that's actually okay. But I think seeing how people utilize resources, how they get creative in sort of problem solving, I think is always really helpful.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go to Jonathan Powell for our next question.
Hi.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, look, thank you for your time. Yeah, I had a quick question regarding creativity versus solution focus and where the difference lies between the two. And actually, is there a difference?
Ben, why don't you take that first this time?
Okay. Creativity versus solution focus. Again, it depends on the context and the situation because they can be interrelated. Here's an example. You know, I need to lose some weight. I've been sitting around in COVID too much, no exercising. Solution, start exercising. Another example, you know, that's the solution, that's not creative, to start exercising. Another way, I've been in COVID, stuck here too long, I'm gaining weight, I'm feeling lonely. My dog's unhappy, I don't have a dog. Let's get a group of dog walkers together on a video and just start jogging together. I'll lose weight, and that's a creative way where I could just start exercising. I have these sort of long analogies for everything, but I think the idea here is that you can have a solution that is maybe bare minimum. It solves that issue. But when you have a fantastic solution, that will require creativity. That will require more than just doing the status quo. And I think those are usually the better ones. The creative solutions are better.
Natasha, Dan, do you want to chime in or shall we go to another question?
I think you summed that up really well, Ben, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Saeed, can we go to you next?
Yes, sure. I'm here.
Do you want to tell us your question?
Yeah, thanks everyone for the very intellectual and also very fruitful discussion. The meaning of creativity, as we know it today, will change after COVID-19. How would you recommend people or advise people to prepare themselves for the next stage?
I love this question so much. I was so excited when you put it. Thank you so much. I think it's a fantastic question. And honestly, I'm really excited to see what you guys say because I have no idea. Yeah, go ahead, Natasha, you can start.
Oh, you've seen I've taken it off mute. I think it's really hard for us all to know the answer to that. All I would say or recommend is just to listen and be engaged with what's going on around you and just learn as much as you can. Find out what, you know, the industry is doing, the challenges that they're facing, and, you know, what we've done is we've actually attended as many webinars as possible that all of our clients have done to really get an understanding of the different technology that's being used. You know, some have been fantastic, some have been a little bit more basic, but without that knowledge, gathering that knowledge of what's happening around you and in your industry, it's going to be really hard for you to change yourself and the way that your business reacts to, you know, to the surroundings. So creativity will absolutely change. As I mentioned before, it's, you know, it's gone from everything's very digital at the moment. So we're all having to look at technology, and technology is something that we've needed to really look at much better with our events for a long time. And that's really pushed us to do it. You know, there's this big thing around hybrid events now with the virtual and the, you know, face-to-face events. That's going to be a really big thing. So coming up with those creative ideas for the organisers is going to be a real challenge. But I think you've just got to immerse yourself in your industry and understand what everybody is up against, so you know how to adapt yourself with that.
Dan?
I agree. I think another question to ask is more questions. You know, I think that when it comes down to it, it's why do people actually attend our events? Really get back to basics. And some of those basics, when you start asking those questions, I often find that a lot of our events people come to because there's a sense of community. So we know that we need to create a sense of community in this sort of post-COVID world. How do we go about doing that? And so Natasha touched on virtual events, which is going to be a big conversation, I think, for the industry in the future. But I think that, you know, finding ways to connect buyers, sellers, how do we go about doing that? So get back to basics, really figure out the, you know, when you're thinking about your in-person events, what are the reasons people attend your event? List those things out and say, how can we do it now? If we were to start this from the ground up today, how could we do it moving forward? I mean, I think we all are very eager to get back to what we've done for so long, but I think that, you know, we're all going to be rethinking about how we do this in the future. So getting back to basics is I think, a recommendation I would have.
Anything else you want to add, Ben, or do you feel like they've covered it?
You covered a lot of good stuff there. I was looking at that again in case I had to say something. Saeed, I want to answer your question a little bit differently. How will the meaning of creativity change change after COVID-19? I was going to go really creative one moment, but I want to give you a really solid business answer. In a world where we're all having postponed events, and then we're all trying to offer digital solutions, these are all fantastic. But the world is now being flooded with digital solutions and webcasts, business matchmaking, virtual events. So if you're talking from an event perspective, the definition of creative is who can do and serve those products the best and with the most usefulness to their users. Virtual events, I'm saying, webcasts.
All right, I'm going to be really honest and tell you that mine just blipped there a minute, so I missed Ben's great talk, so it doesn't count. No, I'm sure it was wonderful. The other thing that I just wanted to add in on that topic was I think it's really going to be a huge democratization of creativity. I think we're going to all be a lot more responsible for it, and Jessica put in here, I think we'll be a lot more responsive and agile after COVID, and we'll always have a plan B from now on. I couldn't agree more, Jessica, and I also think that everybody will be responsible for being able to pivot fast and come up with ideas, and we're not going to be looking to one specific pillar for that information anymore. I think we probably have time for about one more question. Ian, would you like to share your question with us? Ian, I can see you speaking, but I think you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that. Thanks everybody for a good session. Just a quick one. What skills do you think you need to be creative?
Ben, you're already unmuted and I missed your last session, so why don't you start? Okay, for a second there when you were quiet, I thought, was that the wrong answer? Okay, last question. What skills do you need to be creative? Honestly, this is my answer to a lot of things. It's also my answer to what do you need to be successful. The number one thing to be creative or to be successful in my book is this: don't be afraid. Being afraid is the worst. Being afraid is like what gets you not to try things. You're worried that you'll look stupid. I make myself look stupid every day, and I always come up with new things, and I enjoy it. So I think that fear, more so fear is one of the biggest inhibitors, because if you have fear, you're never gonna try something. You're never gonna give yourself the chance. So I think with all of my colleagues here, they all in one way or another stepped out of a comfort zone, willing to put themselves out there and try something different. Dan with trying a very different type of video that they don't normally do, and it's had really great feedback. Natasha as well, putting herself out there. So that's my #1 piece of advice. Be creative. You start with just don't be afraid.
I'll go next if you like. You stole what I was going to say, Ben. I was just going to say, be brave. Yeah, be brave. Same thing. Because as I mentioned earlier, your creativity will evolve, and what you think, is an okay idea will just naturally get better and better and better. I mean, you might have blips throughout, but it will evolve, and you'll end up with something that's completely different that you had no idea, but actually it's really cool and it's really exciting. I would also say that if you feel that you need to refresh on your skills, go and see what other people are doing. Like sometimes when I'm a little bit, I lack kind of inspiration or creativity, I just think, okay, well, what are other people doing? How are they doing it? And just go and educate myself with, other people that are putting out video content. I take the best bits from there and I learn from others. So I think you can learn creativity. Sometimes you just need that seed, that little idea to kind of get you going.
And I would follow up with that as well by saying, be conscious of what inspires you. For me, I love music. I probably listen to music now all the time as I'm doing my work. It could be something, for you that might not resonate with other people, but find those opportunities of where you're feeling inspired and be really conscious of it. What was it that inspired you? What can you extrapolate from that? And figure out how you can then sort of repurpose it in a creative way. I think that that's very similar to what Natasha said, but that's how I personally approach creativity.
Thank you so much. And I think we're just at about time. So I am going to say thank you again to our speakers for giving us such fantastic insight, for sharing the cool things that they've done, and then for this chat around creativity and some of the skills and how things are changing. Please remember that Global Exhibitions Day is coming up on the 3rd of June. And I think if there's anything we have learned, the big takeaways for me here are, let's take some risks and not be afraid. This is a time when our industry needs us. And let's have a bit of fun with it. Be a bit emotional, trial it out. And you certainly have at least a group of, I don't know, there's about 150 people on this webcast that clearly want to be creative and celebrate together. So there are people that want to support the ideas. They do want to try things out. They do want to see you pushing the boundaries. So let's use GED as, kind of a fun way we can all share and express ourselves. So thank you all for participating. Thank you for everybody who was on the chat, and thank you to our presenters. And thank you to our diamond sponsors, apparently. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, Caitlin. Thank you.